and gentlemen, welcome to Marketing Monday Wins and Fails, where we go over all of the wins and fails in the last week in marketing and business. I'm going to start you off with an interesting win that combines one of the more interesting Venn diagrams that I think that I've ever seen. That, of course, is the peanut butter and chocolate combination of gamers and insider trading. This is where we find ourselves. But first, a little bit of backstory. I made a clip a few days ago called Getting Away with Insider Trading, where I listened to some interesting stories from chat about how they thought they could get away with insider trading. And a lot of you after that clip sent me comments or DMs about things that have happened in your real life that are like, could this be insider trading? Could I get away with it? And of course, my answer to all of you is no, probably not. But a lot of you seem to think that you are capable of getting away with insider trading. I don't necessarily blame you, because a lot of you are looking around at the world and seeing things like this. Senator Thomas Tuberville here, who's on the Senate Committee for Agriculture and is directly betting on wheat, corn, soy, and cattle futures and making tons of money. And this happens all over in our government. People see insider trading happen, not get punished, and think, okay, maybe the SEC sucks. Maybe they don't know how to prosecute it. I'll probably get away with it just fine. And the only time I can remember in recent memory where somebody rich or famous actually got punished for insider trading was Martha Stewart like fucking 10 years ago. So I can see why you might think that. But my theory is that you don't have the level of connections that senators, government officials, and rich people do have. But you are gamers, okay? You are gamers, and I think maybe your gamer skill makes you believe that you can. And as we know, gamers have never ever been caught for insider trading. Enter a new character to the Marketing Monday lore. Anthony Vigiano. He's a 26-year-old gamer who works at Goldman Sachs, and he deals with very interesting upcoming merger and acquisition transactions. That means he has non-public knowledge, secrets about upcoming mergers and acquisitions. Now, Anthony Vigiano here has a friend named Christopher Salamone. Now, I don't have a picture of Christopher Salamone, so I used an artist's rendition of the average Italian man. This is Christopher Salamone. He is a friend of Anthony's, and these two together, as two gamers and friends, have decided to do some insider trading. Anthony here is going to have all of the knowledge from his job at Goldman Sachs, and Christopher is going to do the trading. And they are going to be very smart because they're gamers. They will use no texting. They will use no email. They will leave no records of their conversations. That way no one can trace them one to the other. They will use a smoke screen. Let's say, for example, what happened. Anthony tells them to buy MAXR, a defense company that's going to have a merger. He tells them to buy 4 other defense stocks so they could pretend he was buying defense stocks in anticipation of a possible World War III. It's a smoke screen. How do they split the profits? In cash only. Once Christopher makes his money, he goes to the bank, withdraws $20,000 in cash, hand delivers it back to Anthony. Now, how, if they do all these things right, could they get caught? Well, it turns out the stock market is kind of like a casino because the average person always loses. And so the SEC has a unit basically called the Market Abuse Unit that looks to see if anyone is consistently winning, which turns out is extremely rare. It turns out are winning consistently in the stock market. They might check how you won that money. And they might try to see if there's any connection. Like say you used to live on the block of somebody and are lifelong childhood friends with somebody working at an analyst firm. But they still need hard evidence. And that's where this story became great. Because these two guys decided not to use texting, not to use email, but they did have to talk to each other. They didn't live in the same location. How did they talk to each other? Step 1 was Signal, an app that deletes their messages after 5 minutes. The second thing was Xbox 360 voice chat.
I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick, ask for Danny G. I'll come out my house and I'll break your fucking legs.
Which Anthony is quoted as saying is impossible to trace, giving us one of the all-time greatest business headlines. There is no tracing Xbox 360 chat. Claimed guy now charged with insider trading. Him and his friend would get on old Xbox 360 games and talk about their plans in Xbox 360 chat. Now, this recording was obtained and used by the SEC in their complaints. That being said, a lot of other things fell apart. It turns out their friend told another friend, and that friend did text people, which made it a lot easier for them to track it down. But eventually, they did use a recording on Xbox 360 of the guy saying there's no way to trace Xbox 360 and put it in court, which led to these two guys going down. So next time you're thinking that you've got it all figured out and you want to beat the system with insider trading, I gotta say I would recommend against it. That was a nice win, but I want to give a fail to technology that is past its prime. All of you have been to a gas station or a grocery store and you've seen, this. It's called a display fridge. And basically it's a fridge with a big glass door so you can tell what's inside it. Yuck! Enter the future and a win for all of us. Enter the cooler screen, a gigantic wall-to-ceiling monitor that covers the products inside, but it tells you what's in there. Wow! Think of all the advantages of this amazing cooler screen. For example, it can tell you what's inside. Well, no, that one does that. It can, it runs with more electricity. For example, it regularly freezes or goes dark, preventing customers from seeing what's available inside. Sometimes it'll spark and catch fire. Sometimes it'll show the wrong products or prices, or it won't show you when it's out of stock. Let's go. These are advantages. And these are rolling out to convenience stores and supermarkets nationwide. And maybe I wouldn't have talked about this. Honestly, I didn't know if this is a story worth including in Wins and Fails. But I saw someone who walked into a Walgreens and complained about it. It was this woman named Annie. And she said, I will never be able to comprehend this design change. They're almost always wrong. They cost more money because it's an always on display. You have to lose cold air because you're constantly opening and closing it to check if they're right. They don't make the lives of the employees or customers easier. What the fuck was wrong in the first place? And her top comment, as is always the case on twitter.com nowadays, because blue checks get automatically put to the top comment, was this guy, Scott Stevenson. And Scott Stevenson, something that made me so pissed off that I wanted to make a segment on it. Scott Stevenson said, if you think a $20 billion company hasn't had a team empirically analyze the ROI on this, you might be the one missing the elephant in the room. Marketing is often about displaying the intoxicating platonic ideal of a product. A bottle of Coke is not that interesting or good, but the perfect mental image of Coke is incredible. Of course! That's why they did it! It looks so much better than the real thing, and that's why they buy it. It couldn't have anything to do with something else, right? But first, I'll talk about the first part. The first part of his sentence is that bootlicking a $20 billion company couldn't possibly make a stupid mistake, which is so right. We've never seen an example of a multi-billion-dollar company make catastrophic errors that are anti-consumer. But more importantly, let's go back to that original video and think about why there might be some other reasons they might want to make floor-to-ceiling screens. Gigantic floor-to-ceiling ads that are playing nonstop 24/7 whenever you're not looking directly at the screen you want. I wonder if that had any reason for Walgreens and other stores wanting to do it so they could sell the ad space to make more money for themselves, costing the customer experience. Or maybe the fact that at the top of every one of these fucking things is a camera and a microphone so they can scan your face and remember your behavior. The new freezer doors have cameras, motion sensors, eye tracking capabilities. They track your gender and age so they can target which display ads to show and which promotions to show. They can even figure out your emotional response to individual products. I wonder, Scott Stevenson, if maybe that had something to do with it. Anyway, the funniest part of this whole story is that customers absolutely fucking hate them. And it's so obviously worse than the very easy solution that we had before of display fridges. Walgreens had originally had a contract for tens of thousands of these to roll out to almost every store. And after an initial trial run, decided, fuck this, we're not going through with it. And is now being sued by Cooler Screens for $200 million. Because they decided to not go through with the deal and don't want to have it anymore. Now, you're still seeing these pop up in stores other than Walgreens all over the world, really, but especially in America, because some stores are greedy enough to try and make extra money from the ads and the tracking. But looking more into it, I wanted to know why they made the choice in the first place. Why did Walgreens think it was a good idea? Is it because they're a $20 billion company that had empirically analyzed the ROI? Perhaps. Or perhaps Gregory Wasson, the former CEO of Walgreens, is a Cooler Screen co-founder. Maybe he just milked his former company for a multi-$100 million deal to buy his dog shit screen, and then they figured out that it was terrible and are now being sued. And that's part of a larger theme that I talk about on Marketing Monday all the time, which is that we've got a real problem with CEO compensation in this country where they just aren't worth it. CEOs in a lot of these companies are literally milking money that should at least go to shareholders for themselves. They've turned them into their own personal piggy banks. That's neither here nor there. Let's talk about something way more interesting with giving a big win to my man Ninja.
Just move. If you got to throw it, just move. It's all I want to see, some movement. I'm not seeing enough movement.
Maybe you remember Ninja's beautiful masterclass, Become a Streamer in 30 Days. I learned a lot from my man here. And now that I'm a Fortnite player, a true GOAT, I'm giving him a win because he's a pioneer. As an Irish university is now offering their own degree in influencing as of this semester, this fall semester. Now, as a elective, I've got no problem with this, but I do tend to agree with this guy that the idea of somebody going into debt, student loan debt for a degree in influencing, and I don't know what teacher is going to be at this school in Ireland that can offer them enough knowledge to guarantee they're going to get any sort of job. So I'm a little worried about that. And so I'm going to stick with Ninja for now because I think he's the only one that's got an authentically good class. And that brings me to my next win, which is Fortnite related. Because if you are a Fortnite player like me, we've just got one of our biggest government action wins of all time. An FTC lawsuit against Epic Games has won for using what are called dark patterns, aka design tricks. For example, let's say the button to buy a skin was right where an old button to like exit the menu used to be, and you accidentally one-click it and it buys it. Well, it turns out a lot of kids were accidentally one-clicking things to buy unintended purchases. Well, they got sued, they were proven correct, and you can now refund any item you purchased from 2020 to 2022. And what's incredible is that not only do you get your money back, you get to keep the items, which is pretty incredible. So I'm gonna give a dub to government intervention here and for making this punishment on Epic Games. Speaking of things that you can't refund, I'm gonna give a fail to this. Not the Apple Watch in general, but this specific model. This is the gold Apple Watch, and this cost $17,000. And as of 1 day ago, it is now obsolete, which means Apple will no longer repair it and updates won't work for it, which means its resale value has dropped to nothing. Which is not great, given that even in the wild world of expensive watches, that's absurd. Rolexes, for example, have generally held their value over that same period of time. So if you bought a Rolex for 17 grand, you could sell it for perhaps even 20 grand. Sometimes they go up in value. This Apple Watch, in its planned obsolescence, has gone from 17K to 0. Worry not, I've got a plan for you to make money. But first, take a moment. Take a moment. Drink it in. Okay, so I'm actually gonna give you guys a fail for not appreciating this enough. This is a very valuable piece of artwork. This artwork is entitled Take the Money and Run, and it was sold to a museum for $77,000. And is now being sued by that museum and being ordered to pay the money back after being commissioned to make art, and he submitted 2 blank canvases under the direct title, Take the Money and Run. I think it's provocative.
It's nice. Gets the people going.
You know what's funny is now that it has a story, it probably is worth this much. Before the story comes out, this is worthless. But once art has a story like this, people suddenly want to own it. Also, another win. Again, we don't talk about ads too often on directly in wins and fails, but I wanted to give a win to an interesting ad that I saw from the World Wildlife Fund, which showed the Twitter logo through the years. And then in 2023, it turned to X and said, protect our wildlife before it's too late. I just want to give a win to a clever ad. That was a clever way to tie to social media. And it's a perfect segue into my next win, which is understanding how to make great tweets or great X's from corporations, which came to us this week from McDonald's, which used, cool slang to say, talk yo talk about this, how it started, how it's going meme of a McDonald's crew member that went from a crew member in year 1 to a training manager in year 15. And McDonald's thought this was something to be proud of. Understandably, the fucking comments were not nice. It's people saying like, what the fuck? Do you think this is cool? Do you think this is like an appropriate thing to strive for? People saying 15 years for fucking nothing. But there does exist an industry where you can climb much higher than that. And I want to talk about a man who did it. This guy right here, Damon Hinninger, CEO of Core Civic, worked his way up from the lowest rung. And what is that lowest rung, you might ask? Correctional officer at a private prison. What did he do during his time as CEO? Well, first, he was part of a much widening gap between the pay of the CEO and the average correctional officer. Their pay stagnated or even declined, while his pay drastically increased. He was responsible for many, many class action lawsuits for not paying wages. But at least the prisons were run well and the inmates were treated fairly.
Core Civic needs more officers.
Latimer says understaffing not only puts officers at risk, but delayed medical care to inmates.
Most of the time, we'd have an inmate come to us like, hey, I've got this or this or this going on. Literally, the only thing we could do was, here, man, fill out this sick call slip.
The thing that you need to understand about CoreCivic is that they do not care when inmates in their custody die.
In a new lawsuit, he calls the center severely understaffed and Tennessee's most dangerous and notorious prison.
Well, at least he got paid. And speaking of jail, let's give a fail to somebody who might soon be spending time in a prison just like this one. Our old friend of the show, Sam Bankman-Fried. SBF is back, baby, and his trial has just officially begun. Now, we don't have official photos of the trial, but these sketches will tell you that it is getting serious. The SBF trial is already absurd. So many things have already happened on the first day of trial, including them talking about his Forbes 400 cover and playing in full for the court the Larry David FTX ad.
It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so.
Which had people apparently laughing. But the estimates are not looking good for Sam, even on the first day of his trial. Basically, the prosecution is not offering him any sort of plea deal, which means that Caroline, Ryan, and Gary, which are basically his ex-girlfriend and ex-coworkers at Alameda and FTX, have provided meaningful intel to convict. They've already flipped on him, and they have basically given the country enough evidence to think they can put him down. And their estimate is that a light sentence would be 30 years. Reminder that Madoff got 150 years. A lot of things have come out as a result of both this trial and the release of Michael Lewis's new book, Going Infinite. Now, Michael Lewis is a very respected financial writer, but this book has been getting pretty torn down for being an obvious puff piece that was written before FTX collapsed. And there is also very open questions as to whether the author got paid significantly by SBF for this book. What really has come out that was interesting was stuff about our old friend of the show, Mr. Wonderful. Now, I want to remind you of something that Mr. Wonderful said, a couple things Mr. Wonderful said back when SBF and FTX were doing well.
If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX.
I am a paid spokesperson for FTX. I did a lot of due diligence before I accepted that position.
If you talk to 10 people that knew Sam, 9 of them are going to say what a wonderful guy he was, and I'm one of those.
Long before crypto, he was a trader. He understands the power of leverage because he doesn't get himself caught in over-leveraged positions.
I don't think that guy has a...
That was particularly bad because that's exactly what he did. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, was paid $15.7 million for 20 hours of work, 20 social posts, 1 lunch, and 50 autographs. Again, this is a guy who does cameos for $1,000 a cameo.
Hey, Mr. Wonderful here. Why am I calling in? I hate advertisement in the middle of entertainment. I can't stand the ads. How about a game that doesn't have any ads in it? You should really check out Royal Match.
Now, I want to talk about one part of that was interesting, which is that it wasn't just Mr. Wonderful here getting paid. In fact, Michael Lewis, in one of the actual good pieces of journalism in his book, revealed some of the other payments that were made.
He paid Tom Brady $55 million for 20 hours a year for 3 years.
$55 million for 20 hours a year. Unique to Tom Brady is I believe he took all of that payment in FTX stock and crypto. I think Tom Brady specifically actually believed in the mission, which is the stupidest part. Shaq cashed that shit out insta.
He paid Steph Curry $35 million for same thing for 3 years.
Pretty good hourly wage.
He spent $100 and something million buying the naming rights for the Miami Heat Arena. He spent $25 million making a Super Bowl ad with Larry David, for which he then paid Larry David another $10 million. You know, it's breathtaking what's on that list.
Did any of the people surrounding him, these celebrities, do it because they found him interesting?
Tom Brady, I think, adored him. Really, Tom Brady thought he was just a really interesting person. I think he'd like to hear what he had to say.
What's up, guys? I'm here with my boy Sam from FTX.
And he really liked Tom Brady. The nerd of all nerds. Like, even the nerds don't hang out with this nerd. He's such a nerd. The quarterback somehow likes him.
He's more than a nerd, Michael Lewis. He is a scammer. The case is pretty open and shut. There's so much hard evidence that FTX just took customer funds to buy all this obscene shit. And as it turns out, that expensive commercial featuring SBF's dad. So another big revelation of this trial, and my big fucking fail of the week, is SBF's parents are nearly as guilty as he is. They siphoned millions of dollars from FTX themselves before the collapse. For example, here is an email from SBF's father demanding to get paid more for being a spokesman for FTX. FTX. He was getting paid $200K and said he was supposed to get $1 million a year. And then says, gee, Sam, I don't know what to say here. This is the first I've heard of $200K a year. Putting Barbara on this, which is his mom. He lobbied his own son to increase his salary $800K a year for a company that he wasn't even really working at. And it doesn't stop there, okay? They received $10 million gifts from their son and $19 million for property in the Bahamas. These are school teachers. Where are they getting this money? And their dad, of course, demanded to be cast in the Larry David ad, which he is right here. You can see. And you can see he said, okay, I'm not a star fucker, and I don't really care about meeting, say, Tom Brady, but Larry David, ... Are you trying to fuck Larry David, Joseph Bankman? Again, his parents are definitely involved. They're complicit in this crime. They either knew or ignored bright red flags revealing that their son was orchestrating a vast fraudulent scheme. And I think this part is very difficult for them to prove. We'll see as the trial goes further. Now, speaking of trials, one that doesn't exist but probably should is T-Mobile. I'm going to give them another fail of the week because T-Mobile was just openly giving people other people's information in the app. If you opened your T-Mobile app, it was just giving you someone else's credit card, someone else's billing information, someone else's passwords. It was like a random roulette of doxing. Now, they haven't been sued for this, and the FTC hasn't stepped in, and I'm asking why. This is like insanely criminal negligence on T-Mobile's part. It's a huge fuck up. I don't know what will become of it. Hopefully, there's a class action lawsuit, but I thought that was a funny fail. Hopefully, someone paid my bill. And everyone, I think, is hoping that that could happen to them, that someone will come along and pay their bills. Because as I've seen on social media, inflation is getting out of control.
So I'm walking around Costco here and I'm noticing these prices. For example, these Madras lentils, $15.99. I bought those a year ago for $6.99. I keep getting told that we got, 6-7% inflation. You gotta be kidding me. Let's look at what else we got going on here. We literally bought this chicken broth, $5.69, 2 months ago.
Photo evidence of massive price increases on consumer staples. He's thinking of 7% inflation a year. It's more like 7% a month. It keeps adding up and compounding on each other. And I think the numbers are probably accurate. We just have bad inflation. But I think people are definitely waking up to the fact that no matter what anyone trumpets or says, especially grocery prices have gotten way fucking worse. And it's noticeable. It's gasoline, beef, laundry equipment, natural gas, eggs, bacon, used cars, everything. Prices are all up and people are noticing it and they're feeling it. But one thing has gotten worse than all of the rest. And it's the one people are getting most hurt by. Love, ladies and gentlemen, has the worst inflation of all, specifically in dating apps. Because every single dating app is now introducing massive high price tiers or price hikes. Hinge is adding a $50 monthly rate up from its previous high of $35. Bumble is considering a tier above a $60 a month plan. Grindr is adding more premium offerings. They're paywalling and gating love behind higher and higher price tiers in these dating apps. And they say when it comes to what you're willing to pay a premium for, finding a life partner is way up there on value. Here's an example of a guy named Nicholas Sassoon, who paid for Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, and has spent more than $800 on dating apps, while landing only a handful of dates. From the amount of time I've been on it, it hasn't paid off, said Sassoon. Still, the 29-year-old is sticking with him. That's how bad dating has gotten. Anyway, the real gigantic elephant in the room of dating app price increases comes from Tinder, which gets my win of the week for pure audacity to offer a $500 a month subscription for its most active users. A $6,000 a year plan for the invite-only Tinder Plus. This is what it offers for $500. You can DM people that didn't match with you 2 times a week. So you can just harass people that don't want to talk to you. How will they not see that it's going to cause people to leave the app? You can get a unblurred profile photo that is prioritized on other people's likes you grid. So you get automatically put in their feed like a blue check mark on Twitter. You get this fucking loser badge. You get this fucking I paid $500, I'm so fucking down bad badge that is on your profile so everyone can see. You get a select mode. This is kind of like Raya or something where you can see like only the most sought after profiles for exceptional connections. And then of course you can hide ads. Hiding ads is a fine feature. $500 a month for it is fucking crazy. It's the most expensive ad blocker the world has ever seen. If you're looking for love, it's getting a little more pricey, but that's what you're going to have to take to get with it in this modern world. Now, this is going to shock you, but this is a perfect segue into our next segment, and you're going to find out why in a second. But ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my man Xi Jinping to introduce you to
Wazzup Beijing.
So why does my conversation on Tinder have anything to do with China? They have a different problem, massive youth unemployment. So what are they using Tinder for in China? To find jobs. Apparently, because the average person that uses Tinder in China has access to a VPN and is likely working for a big, prestigious multinational firm, they're likely to be employed. So people are just making accounts on Tinder, swiping right on everybody, and then asking them for hookups for a job. And on the flip side, even more interestingly, is that apps like TikTok, which are not romance apps here in the US, are offering their employees romance apps. So basically, if you work at TikTok, they now have a built-in matchmaking service where you can set up your employees with somebody else. Interesting flips of matchmaking services. But the real story out of China this week is one that I hope we can all get behind. It is one that brings me great sorrow. The end of panda diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you live in a country other than China, specifically America, the chance of you seeing a panda in a zoo will soon be gone. Every panda, you may or may not know this, is on loan from China as a practice called panda diplomacy that has been around since the 80s, I think, when China was first starting to open up. And they've used these pandas as gifts to build a stronger bond between the two nations. But as the world becomes more multipolar and tensions between the United States and China continue to rise, the negotiations for next year's continuation of the panda lease have gone sour. And it seems very unlikely that China will allow pandas to be exhibited in US zoos for the foreseeable future. A very interesting example of this, it's not just the United States, is these two pandas, which I believe are called Tuan Tuan and Yuan Yuan, whose names together mean reunification. These pandas were gifted to Taiwan to help build diplomatic relations back in 2008. And these two pandas were meant to soften tension. This is, of course, before Xi Jinping took office in 2013. Then he did change stance immediately, and now recently, one of those pandas died. It could not be more symbolic that reunification peacefully is not happening. But this is a serious issue. And there was even a clip in Congress from John Fetterman talking about it.
I mean, they're taking back our pandas. You know, we should take back all of their farmland.
It's tit for tat. The war has escalated. The Cold War and the standoff escalates. Now, I wish more of us could take a lesson from a wise streamer and de-escalate these situations and maybe hope for a peaceful resolution where Taiwan can be its own independent nation. And that streamer, of course, is AI Clint Stevens.
Personally, I think Taiwan should absolutely be recognized as a fully independent nation state. It's time for the world to stop playing games and acknowledge Taiwan for what it is, a sovereign nation. Who I know. I'm just a guy playing Mario 64.
Maybe you know more than us all, Clint. Maybe you know more than us all. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of Wins and Fails, and that is the end of Wazzup Beijing. And hopefully you'll tune in next week for more Marketing Monday Wins and Fails. Thanks for watching.
Check it.